Hi guys, I'm JC and I had the privilege to sit down with two of the big names in the industry. Over the next 2 months, we will release a series of videos and clips for you guys to watch and enjoy. And oh boy, are you guys in for a treat.
Out of the darkness came a guy in Canada, David Reich, with the first Class A, which was a 50 watt. Huge thing. And it was only 50 watts. It was unstable like hell, but it sounded incredible, that amplifier. And I lost my heart completely to the topology of Class A, not because I was technically inclined and knew anything about it like he does, but simply I thought there was a certain magic about Class A. And in my head, when I was trying to analyze what it was, I don't think it was something that it did, but it was something that it didn't do.
Yes, I agree.
The switching distortion was gone, the point where it switches between Class A and Class B. And there are very few real Class A amplifiers. In my opinion, they are more or less all of them are A-B. It's just a matter of how much is A and how much is B.
Yeah.
And that goes for everybody. But also the whole Class A thing has been so misused and raped in the marketing because to most people it sounds like quality, that Class A is something special, right? So there was some manufacturers that was very optimistic with their specifications on Class A. I mean, you would see very small amplifiers, and they would claim it's a 200 watt Class A amplifier, and it basically had no heat sinks on it. And the only thing I learned about Class A until I met this guy actually was that the rule of thumb was that it was Class A, it would be heavy, and it would be hot, and it would have a huge power supply, and there was no way about it. I mean, that's just how it was. So really, the weight of the amplifier was a better specification than most other things, at that time. I've never heard Class A in the topology that Michael has developed, and I didn't think it was possible to do anything remotely like the traditional, Class A. The Class A I'm talking about is really the textbook Class A. And for me, we based that on some transistors from Sanken. And that was, as Michael has said, from the 80s. And it was the very, very, very same transistor that we used in my company at that time up till last year, where it died of old age, and the company came with a new one. And I don't know anything about the new one, but that's what the company is using now. So there's been zero development. I mean, we did everything on a component that was so old, it was unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah, I think that if you look at it, chipsets for Class A and Class B, bipolar complementary transistor sets, nothing has come out since the 80s. I think it's
no.
still, regardless if the Sankens are out of production, maybe there are some Toshibas or maybe there are some other brands, manufacturers, but the fact of the matter is that that's still chipsets from the 80s. And Class A is like what is the unique thing about Class A is that it's not switching,
Yeah.
and there are several ways to get around the switching. And what we have done is that we have put a lot of emphasis in the driver stage and make sure that there's always enough current in the driver stage to drive the current demand of the basis of the output transistors. So that means when we run maybe 120 milliamps in the driver states and with full output swing, the amplifier may need 20 of those. So we still have 100 milliamp to keep the voltage spread.
Mm-hmm.
And by two-tiering the voltage spread from a purely resistor base, which is very normal, to a diode, a Schottky diode and a resistor base, we make the variation of the bias current very, very, very small. And that means regardless how much power you ask, or how much current you ask for the amplifier to deliver into a 2 ohm or 3 ohm load, there's always ample current for the bases to keep them full, so that you don't have to vacate the charge in the bases and refill it. And that's what creates a shaking of the amplifier. And the perception is that Class B amplifiers that are switching is always pointing at you. You have this transistor sound, this cold, clinical, cynical even type of sound that comes out of them. So I think that the way of keeping the bases always loaded with charge, regardless if they go down almost to zero, but just to stay a few milliamps running through the top or the bottom, depending on where you are in the cycle of current, makes a huge difference. And Class A is not about hot, but the traditional way of making Class A is about hot, because there you allow, there you simply feed a lot more current through the output states in order to avoid switching. But that just extends the pain. So instead of switching after 5 watts, now you can extend it to 10 or 15 or 20 watts, and then you reach the limit. Because if you want to have something that can actually feed current into a 4 ohm load with a 60, 70, 80 volts voltage swing, then you need maybe 10 pairs, and all of a sudden 10 pairs, and you reach a 60 milliamp current, all of a sudden you're burning 300 or 400 watts in that. And what we do is that we have a driver stage that has a lot of current, but that's the only thing that really gets hot. And the output transistors are biased with what we call Oliver bias, which is around roughly 20 to 22 milliamps. And that's where the optimum distortion-wise point is. It's not optimal to bias an output transistor with 60 milliamp or 100 milliamp or whatever, but around 20. So we always have this 20 plus milliamps running. And of course, when you have the cycle going to all the way to the top or all the way to the bottom, then one of the transistors conduct less. But because we can keep the bases loaded, they never go below the threshold and empty charge out. So they stay on all the time, which is per definition stay on in Class A all the time.